Okay, so for this particular lesson, we're going to talk about simple interest. And simple interest is calculated if you know three things. One, you need to know the principal, which describes or indicates the initial amount of money that you have that you want to invest, and the rate, at what rate you want this to be invested. So, like for example, if you give me if you go to the bank or an investor and you give them $10,000 and they say, okay, we can invest this at a 6% rate, that means you will gain 6%, on that particular initial sum of money. And then you need to know the time, how long you want this to be accumulating interest. Simple interest is what you get at the end of that time. So, you want to invest $10,000 in 1 year. The simple interest that you gain after that year gets added to the principal, which is totally different than when interest is being compounded. That's what I meant to say. So that's a totally different situation. Okay, so the formula that you need is going to be this particular formula, and you may have seen this before. Okay, interest equals principal times rate times time. Okay, and this is called simple interest. All right, and that's the interest that you'll gain at the end of the time period. So three things have to be provided in order to calculate the other variable. So if I give you a principal and a rate and a time, you can calculate the interest. Okay, so we're going to calculate the interest first. Let's do this one. Okay, so let's say I give you a principal of $1,280, and we're going to invest this at a rate of 6% for a time of 2 years. Okay, all you do is plug in the values into the equation. So the principal we said was $1,280. The rate, don't forget to convert this to a decimal. Okay, so we move it over 2 places, add the decimal at the end. Okay, so percent to a decimal, always move the decimal 2 places to the left. So that'll be 0.06, and of course time is going to be 2 years. So you simply just multiply these three quantities together. Okay, and when you do that, you will get a total of $150.53, which will be the interest that you would gain all year at the end of the year, and that's the amount of interest that you'll make. Okay, so that's what simple interest is. Okay, it's a very simple formula. Let's say they give you let's say you wanted to calculate the principal and they give you the interest, rate, and time. Well, you could derive that formula. Let me just show you. Okay, so let's say you had the formula that I just mentioned, and you want to calculate the principal. Well, if you use algebra, you get the variable p by itself. We're going to divide both sides by RT. So these will cancel, and then you're just left with I equals, hold on 1 second. All right, so you're going to get I divided by RT equals P. So you have to know the interest, rate, and time in order to calculate the principal. Okay, you can also find the rate. Okay, if you're given the interest, principal, and time, you can find the rate. And you do that by dividing both sides by PT, because you want the P variables and the T variables to cancel. So now you're just left with interest divided by PT equals R. Okay, and you can even find the formula for time. Okay, so we have principal, rate, and time. Okay, and you can divide both sides by PR. Let me just use the same color here. Hold on, let me just rewrite this. Okay, if we divide both sides by PR, then the new formula becomes interest divided by principal times the rate, and that'll give you the time, okay? So you can derive each formula so you don't have to memorize it, okay? You just have to know I equals PRT, and you can derive the other three formulas if they ask you 3 out of the 4 quantities. You need 3 out of the 4 to calculate any missing variable. So pretty simple to use, okay? All right, so that is how you find simple interest. The next problem that we're going to do is we're going to calculate the if you're given a principal and it's borrowed and the loan's future value at a time t is given. So what I'm trying to say is that we can determine the loan simple interest rate, okay, and then we can find we can find the rate and we can find the future value, okay. So we can calculate a lot of different things here in this particular section. So let me give you 3 quantities that are given, all right, and I'm going to show you the formula that we need. So, all right, so the principal given here is $9,500, okay, and the initial amount, this stands for the initial amount, okay, and that's going to be the future amount. I'm sorry, boy, I think I'm tired today. Future amount. Okay, future amount here. Okay, here we go. A is the future amount. The initial amount is 9,500. So A is the initial amount, and we're going to be given the future amount, our future value. Let me write that down. Future value. Okay, so let's say that's $10,402, and the time, let's say 1 year. Okay, so 3 quantities have to be given. So to determine the loan simple interest rate, we have to solve the future value formula for R. So first we place the values into the future value formula for our problem. So step 1 is that we're going to use this formula. Okay, the future value is the principal times 1 plus RT. 1 represents 100% of the initial value, like 10,402. So when you invest that with a particular rate over a period of time, it should be tacked on to the principal because you're making interest, right? So my best way to do it, just plug in the values and then we can solve for R. Don't try to do it without plugging in values. We want to make this as easy as possible. So we're going to go ahead and plug in A, the future value, which would be 10,402. I'm going to leave the dollar signs out because it'll get confusing with the formula. And the principal is 9,500, okay, times 1 plus. Now the rate we don't know, but we do know the time, which is 1, okay. And let's do some basic arithmetic. Okay, so here we go. Let's simplify this. All right, 95, okay, times 1 is just 9,500, plus 95 times, 1 times R is R, right? When you do that, that's just going to be R. 1 times R is R. And when you do 9,500 times R, it's going to be 9,500 R. Okay? So now we just do some math here, okay? So we use the distributed property. Now we're going to subtract 9,500 from both sides because we want the 9,500 times R by itself, okay? So we could just do this. Subtract 9,500. Okay, so these cancel. when you do $10,402 and you take away $9,500, you will get $902.50. Okay? And that's going to equal 9,500R. And then we divide both sides by 9,500. These cancel. You bring down the R, bring down the equal sign, and then 9250. When you divide it by 9,500, okay, I got 0.095. Now, when you convert that to a decimal, okay, you're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right now, right? 1, 2, and that just converts to 9.5%, and that equals the rate. Okay, so that always expresses as a percent. Okay, even though 0.095 means the same thing, but you want to represent it as a percent. Okay, because if you're telling someone the rate, you don't want to say, oh, it's 0.095, even though it's correct, but you want to say it in percent form because it'll make more sense. Okay, so that's a really typical problem that you're going to see, is the future value is A, not the initial amount. The initial amount's the principal. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that for you. And then you can find any one of these variables if you're given 3 out of the 4, right? You got A, P, R, T. You need 3 to get the fourth one. If you don't have the third value, you're not going to be able to calculate anything, right? So, it's pretty much, I can do one more where we can find the, let's find the principal. Okay, let's do another one. Let's say I give you a future value of $10,300. The rate is going to be 4%, and then the time is going to be 7 years, okay? All right, so we're going to use the future value formula, okay? All right, and let's plug in our values. So plug in the values first, and then algebraically solve for the variable that's left behind, okay? All right, so let's plug in some values. We got 10,300. All right, the P, we don't know, we're trying to find that. So it's 1 plus, now the rate we said was, again, when you convert this to a decimal, it should be 0.04. All right, so we're going to do 0.04 times time. What do we say time was? 7, right? Okay, so basically what you do is 0.04 times 7. And if you add 1 to that, you're going to get this. You're going to get, I forgot to put P here. Let me just go ahead and fix that, okay? P, so A, okay, A equals, okay, we already know what A was, 10,300. That's going to equal P times 1 plus 0.04 times 7, okay? So we've already, we said that 1 plus 0.04 times 7, to save a little time, will give you 1.28. Okay? Times the 0.04 times 7 first, then add the 1, and you'll get that value, 1.228. All right, in order to solve for P, we're going to divide both sides by 1. I can't write today. All right, let's try this again. Why is this not erasing? Hold on one second. Okay, so we are going to divide by 1.28. 1.28. These cancel. Then you're left with P equals. Now, when you divide 10,300 by 1.28, I got 8,046 $6.88. That's the principal. So again, if you know 3 out of the 4 terms, you can calculate the other one. Just plug in the values into the future value formula and then do the arithmetic, right, first. You'll simplify it, and then you'll have the variable. You'll know exactly what to do with that variable. Usually you're going to end up dividing by something, okay? Because you want the quantities to cancel in order to get that variable by itself. So just simple algebra, and then you'll be able to calculate any variable that's given, okay? All right, so I like to try, let's do another problem. So let's say you want to start a small business, and you take out a loan, or you take out a simple interest loan for $10,000 for 9 months at a rate of 5.25%. So we want to calculate the interest. How much interest must that student pay, and find the future value of the loan. So, all right, so here we go. What's given? All right, well, the principal of this loan is going to be $10,000. That's what's going to be given to you, okay? And then the bank's going to charge you a rate of 5.25%. And we want to do this for 9 months, not a year now, 9 months. Oops. 9 months. All right. So here's what I want you to do first, okay? First thing I want you to do is find out how much interest must the student pay. Okay? So in order to calculate that, we need to know the simple interest formula, which is I equals PRT. Okay, so you remember that? So it's a very important formula. A simple one, but good to know, right? So we need to find the rate. I don't mean find the rate, but we need to change the rate, excuse me, into a decimal. So we have 5.25%. We're just going to move the decimal 2 places to the left. I mean, the rule doesn't change, even though it's 5.2. Okay, so when you do that, okay, it's going to be 0.0525. That's the rate. That's when you convert it to a decimal. And that's what we're going to use. The next thing we're going to do is we must express time in years. So let me write that down. The time must be expressed in years, okay? That's really important. So let's do that. It's really easy. All right. 1 year is what, 12 months? Well, we're only invested in a period of 9 months. So you got to take the 9 and divide it by the total amount of months in a year. So if I say invest it for 5 months, it'll be 5 over 12. 10 months would be 10 over 12. Okay, in this case, it's 9 over 12. So when you do 9 divided by 12, okay, you get 0.75. Okay, and that is the time. So 3/4 of a year. Okay, which makes sense, right? Every 3 months, right, is a quarter. 3, 6, 9 is 3/4 of a year. All right, so that should match up. Now, we're going to place all these values into the simple interest formula, which is why we need to know that, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we are going to put in the principal, which we said was 10,000 times 0.0525 times, what do we say? The 9 months is equivalent to 0.75, not 1 year. Got to be careful with that. So whatever you get here, we want to make sure that goes in for your time. It's really important, okay? And then just multiply all three together, okay? And I came up with $393 that the student must pay back. Excuse me. Okay, so not too bad, right? All right. You know what? I'm a little OCD here. Let me write that straight. All right, so what did we say? It was $395 or $93, excuse me, and 75 cents. All right, the next thing that we want to do is calculate, we want to find the future value. Okay, future value of the loan. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to use the future value formula. You remember, A equals P times 1 plus RT. And then now we just plug in some information. Well, we already know the principal. Okay, that was given to us. That was $10,000, right? And this is going to be 1 plus, what did we say the rate was? 0.75? I mean 0.0525. And then the time is 3/4 of a year, right? So that'd be 0.75. All right, so we just go ahead and plug in some information here, calculate this information. So here's what I did. When you do, this should be multiplied. When you do 0.525 times 0.75, and then you add 1, okay, you will get a quantity, and then you times it by the 10,000, okay, and then you'll get, when you do all the math, you'll get A equals $10,393.75. So you can see how rapidly the interest grows on a loan. In 9 months, you get almost another $400 tacked on to that principal. So the more money you borrow, okay, the larger the sum of interest that's going to be tacked on to the principal, and you pay that every month. It's going to be accumulating pretty quickly. Okay, so simple interest, and this particular situation is slightly different. Okay, so yeah, the future value of the loan is going to gain $363.75. All right, so you use the future value formula, calculate it, and you should get that. All right, so that concludes that lesson. I hope that it was very helpful to you, and you have a great day.